are in our series called YOLO, You Only Live Once, Choose Wisely. This idea that life is a series of choices, largely, that we make, and those choices shape the trajectory, the direction of where we are going in life. And we are in the book of Proverbs, looking for the wisdom that we all seek and long for when it comes to the decisions that we face, looking to have the kind of wisdom that will help us to find the right path, to find the right direction, to find God's way in life, which is the only ultimately satisfying way. We've looked at several different things so far. Last week we talked about how the wise speak rightly. Pastor Mike was here, and I was incredibly moved by the cards that we all laid here at the platform of names of people, dozens of names of people that God has placed on our heart and called us to speak life into, to speak hope. We prayed over these as a staff this week. We're praying for you as you encounter these people in your daily life and you are speakers of life. We're praying for God's wisdom to flow through you into the lives of these people. And can I just say, this is just one example of the way that God is working in our congregation. And I'm thrilled to see what he is doing. I've met this past week with folks who are ready to start the journey into a discipleship group. And their eagerness to get into the Word and to dig into it and learn from it and be held accountable by others, to being obedient to the Word, to listening to the Holy Spirit as he speaks to them. That encourages me so much. I'm excited by our Soccer Shots program, the opportunity to connect with families again over the next 8 Saturdays, to hear their stories, to speak life into their lives, to see how God is bringing them to this place and how our paths may intersect, hopefully on a more permanent basis. I'm still celebrating the victories from kids camp, the things that God accomplished in the lives of kids, the changes, the people that we met through that opportunity. I am pumped about what God is doing in this place, and I'm excited for the days ahead. That was my pastor's soapbox. I just want you to know so many good things are happening, and these response cards from last week were just one indication of what God is doing here. The premise, the statement that we've latched onto through this series is this: wisdom is a person, Jesus. It's not just something that we find. We're looking for it, but we don't just go out and run into it and find it. We build a relationship with Jesus, and that is the way that God gives us wisdom. He has given us Jesus as his wisdom, who lived life on this earth, and as we build a relationship and cultivate that with him, we gain wisdom for life. Wisdom is a person, Jesus. And this has been the verse, it's kind of our memory verse for the series. Let's say it again together. Let's read it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. One more time. Repetition is good for memory. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Well, this week, our theme is this: the wise marry rightly. The wise marry rightly. Now you may think we just did a series called The Love Covenant where we had a sermon on marriage. That is true. But if we're going to be true to the book of Proverbs, there is so much in here about relationships and the kind of people that we choose. Certainly that is a decision for which we need wisdom. I remember when Karen and I were dating, and we were at the point in our relationship where I was beginning to ask myself, is she the one that God has for me? You better believe I prayed a lot about that. God, I need wisdom, not about you. Just if you were the one, okay? I needed wisdom. I knew I needed to make a good choice because I recognized that that decision would have massive ramifications for my life, good ones. But I wanted to make the right choice. It's important. It's a big decision. Let's just take a quick poll here just to gauge how applicable this message is going to be. Raise your hand if you are already married. Oh. Well, you've all already made your choice. maybe you should have waited until you heard the sermon. I don't know. Maybe we should just dismiss all the married people. You can go. You've made your choice. It's all over for you. No. In fact, as I've looked at this idea from Proverbs and the wisdom of marrying rightly, I think there's a deeper theme that goes beyond just the choice of a spouse. I'd like to suggest we could change today's title from "The Wise Marry Rightly" to "The Wise Are Attracted Rightly." That's kind of cumbersome and a little bit strange, perhaps, as a title. But let me explain that a little bit more. We all have some idea or concept in our mind of what makes a person attractive, handsome, beautiful. If you're already married, those of you that just raised your hand, stop and think for a minute. What were the things that first attracted you to your spouse? What were the qualities about them that drew you to them? What are the things that you are still attracted to today? Hopefully, there's some of the same answers in both of those, but also hopefully there are things that attract you to your spouse today that you wouldn't have thought of when you were first drawn to them, when you were dating. Hopefully you've grown to appreciate new and deeper things about who they are. If you're single and hoping to marry, if that is your desire, think about the kind of person that you're looking for, or that you would be attracted or drawn to, the kind of person that you would want to date. What is that idea in your mind of what makes someone attractive? This concept doesn't just relate to romantic love. It affects how we view ourselves. All of us probably do things to help ourselves fit that idea that we have of what it is to be attractive. We make choices about our hairstyle, about our clothing, about whatever it may be, makeup, etc. We do things because we want to be seen as attractive. So this concept is about more than just who should I marry, though that is incredibly important as well. This even affects our friendships, platonic relationships. There are traits and characteristics about other people that draw us to them, that make us interested in pursuing a friendship with them. So think about that for a minute. What is it in your mind that makes someone attractive? This is more than just about choosing a husband or a wife. It was interesting. Hundreds of studies have been done on the science and psychology of attraction to try to determine empirically what it is that makes someone attractive. Here's some of the things that I read about, true studies that have been done. Facial symmetry. Apparently, the human eye is naturally drawn to faces that are symmetrical. So if one of your eyes is like off, I'm sorry, but apparently that's not going to cut it, okay? Facial symmetry. This was interesting. One study said we tend to be attracted to people who look like the parent who is the opposite gender that we are. So you're attracted, women, to men that look like your dad, according to this study. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was what they said. They also said, I found this curious as well, that we're drawn to average features. Now, they didn't mean by that average-looking people, someone that we would say, they're just average. What they meant was that as our mind processes hundreds and hundreds and thousands of faces, that it forms sort of an average or composite of all of those, and people who look the most like that average idea of a face that we see, we're naturally drawn to. I don't know. These were the studies that were out there. Here's another one, clothing color. People wearing red are more likely to appear attractive to us. I don't know. Particularly red on a man, men who are wearing red, is said makes them appear more powerful and high status. What do you think? I thought we'd test it out. What do you think? High status, right? You can tell. It made all the difference in the world. I don't know. That's what the study said. Men who wear red, powerful and high status. This even breaks down differently as we look at cultures. So this was interesting as well. In Western culture, thin and fit is considered attractive. We all know this. But in some African societies, being larger is attractive because it's a sign of having food and having food is an indicator of wealth. So it's a whole different paradigm. It's a whole different set of values. In Korea, pale skin is attractive because there's a certain understanding that skin tone is related to social class. And a higher class person has paler or lighter skin tones. Whereas in the United Kingdom, where it's always gray and rainy, people who have a tan can afford vacations to exotic places. So the spray tan industry is booming because everyone wants to look like they could afford a vacation. It's attractive to be tanned. So this idea that we have in our head of what is attractive, what is beautiful, what is desirable in a person is very different depending on where you go and who you talk to and who is studied. What is your idea? How do you define beauty and attractiveness? Think about that for just a second. What are the important things in your mind? They say the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? We're familiar with that phrase. And in a sense, that's true because whatever concept it is that we have of beauty, we view the world with that idea. And so we, based on our set of ideals, determine whether something or someone is beautiful or handsome or attractive. It's in the eye of the beholder. But what if our eyes are not reliable? What if the idea that we have, the conception that we have formed from our culture, from other influences, is wrong? What if it's incorrect? This is what I would like to suggest as we look into the book of Proverbs together today. Beauty may be in the eye of the beholder, but we will only see and find true beauty when we let God change our eyes. When we let Him get into the deep part of us where these ideas and concepts are formed and begin to change us from the inside out, so that when our eyes are changed, we see the world differently. It may be in the eye of the beholder, but we need God to change our eyes. We're going to look at two sections of Proverbs today. You can get out your Bibles. The verses will be on the screen as well. Proverbs 31, we're going to look at the Proverbs 31 woman, and then we're also going to look at the Proverbs 32 man. So the Proverbs 31 woman and the Proverbs 32 man will be our models today to unpack how is it that we need to understand what true beauty and attractiveness is. And more than that, the kind of people that we should truly strive to be as men, women, husbands, and wives. Let's look at Proverbs 31 first, beginning in verse 10. It says, "A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life." And this passage goes on with an incredibly deep and significant description of this wife of noble character, someone who is attractive and admirable. This chapter, Proverbs 31, has quite a reputation that precedes it. There's a well-known Christian ministry called Proverbs 31 Ministry, aimed at encouraging women on their spiritual journey based on the ideals put forth in this chapter. And I found this quote interesting. Commentators Daniel and Jonathan Aiken said this: "She, the Proverbs 31 woman, has haunted and terrified women all over the world for 3,000 years. Her massive shadow and imposing stature towers so high that she is held in awe by all who dare to look at her magnificent and unrivaled portrait." Wow. Haunted and terrified women for 3,000 years. Let's see if we can perhaps demystify this a little bit. Not to take away from what the word says or the portrait that is painted here, but to understand the context a little bit better. First of all, this passage that you see, Proverbs 31, 10 through verse 31, is a poem. It's an acrostic poem. It's 22 verses because there are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and so it is laid out in very poetic language, each verse beginning with one of the letters of the Hebrew language. Now, we don't see that translated into English here, A, B, C, D, but it does work that way in the Hebrew. So first, it is a poem, and it uses poetic language, figurative language, which is important to us. If we don't understand that, then as we look through the verses, we might say that any woman who isn't wearing purple, doesn't keep a lamp burning all night, owns and operates a vineyard, and isn't greeted every morning by her children telling her she is blessed simply doesn't measure up. So raise your hand. Where are all my purple-wearing, lamp-burning, grape-raising mothers with perfect children? No? No one's got a vineyard in their backyard? No. This is using poetic and figurative language, but there are some really great truths in here about what is truly beautiful and attractive in a woman. Let's look at some of them. Proverbs 31 here. Just a few of the traits that are laid out in these verses. She is a hard worker. Verse 13 and 15 says, she gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servant. She works hard. She's confident and successful. Verse 16 and 17 says, she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. By the way, the idea of a woman being in business and being successful and owning land would be very different from the way women were typically viewed. So this is painting a very countercultural picture. She's confident and successful. Here's another, she is prepared. 18 and 21 tell us she sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out all night. That doesn't mean she stays up all night. That means she has enough oil for her lamp to run all night. She thinks ahead. She is prepared. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She is prepared. Her family is prepared. Here's another. She's generous and compassionate. Verse 20 says, she opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. She's strong and dignified. Verse 25 says, she's clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She's not worried. She's ready. She's strong. And another, she is worthy of honor. The last verse in the chapter says, honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. Just take that in for a moment. That is quite the picture of a beautiful, wise, attractive woman. But it certainly is not the picture that the world likes to paint of what is beautiful and attractive. It seems like Hollywood and the media industry can only imagine women in one of two ways. It seems like either they're shallow, obsessed with their appearance, just a trophy wife on the arm of whatever man they have, an object of sexual desire, or they're hardened, domineering, bitter, caustic, man-haters. See a few examples in our culture today of these images of a woman. Why is it so hard for the world to imagine a woman who both blesses her husband and children with her loving care and is at the same time confident and successful, strong and dignified? What is it exactly that our culture seeks to elevate as beautiful and desirable? I wonder if we just pulled a dozen average bachelors and asked them, what is it that you find attractive in a woman? Describe for me the perfect woman. They would probably give us a list of physical features, dimensions, sexual prowess, perhaps. Not the things that we see here in Proverbs 31. A very different picture. In fact, a picture that is also given to us in the book of Proverbs in a different chapter. They would describe the Proverbs 7 woman who is very different. Proverbs 7 tells us, dressed like a prostitute and with crafty intent, she took hold of him and kissed him with a brazen face. She said, today I fulfilled my vows and I have food for my fellowship offering at home. So I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you. I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deeply of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. Proverbs 7 woman is very different from this ideal of the Proverbs 31 woman. Men, what is your definition of what you find attractive and desirable? What do you admire in your wife Or what are you looking for in a woman? Or how do you talk about what is beautiful and attractive with other people? What is the ideal that we have formed in our hearts that shapes the things that we say and do and the way that we respond to people? We need God to change our eyes to see and understand beauty and attractiveness differently. We need him to change our eyes. Well, that was the Proverbs 31 woman. Let's look at the Proverbs 32 man. You turn the page. Do you guys have Proverbs 32? Is there not? I seem to be missing that. Is that how they're going to end it? Just a word for the women? Is there no word for the man? There's no Proverbs 32. Interesting. Pastor John West, another one of our teaching pastors, this was his theory. This was good. He said, quote, "I often wonder if perhaps there was once a Proverbs 32 man, and perhaps a male scribe lost that bit of scroll and neglected to pass it on. And men everywhere have been rejoicing ever since. We have no Proverbs 32 man." But we're not off the hook at all, because all throughout Scripture is described for us what makes a man attractive or handsome. And I've compiled it for you. This is my Proverbs 32, a compilation of a variety of scriptures. Listen to these words. "He is a godly man. He walks humbly with his God. He makes it his ambition to lead a quiet and godly life, so that his daily life may win the respect of outsiders. He does not let the book of the law depart from his mouth, but meditates on it day and night, knowing God is with him wherever he goes. He loves his wife, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy. In the same way, he is considerate as he lives with his wife, treating her with respect, and as his joint heir of the gracious gift of life. Living in harmony with her, he is sympathetic, compassionate, and humble. He keeps his tongue from evil and his lips from deceitful speech. He manages his own family well and sees that his children obey him with the proper respect. A godly father, he does not exasperate his children. I'm working on it. But brings them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. He strives to be above reproach, worthy of respect and respectable, in order that he may provide for the daily needs of his family and not live an unproductive life. He is strong, courageous, not terrified, not discouraged. He does not pursue dishonest gain and is not a lover of money. He is generous on every occasion and has a good reputation with outsiders. He is temperate, self-controlled, not indulging in much wine, and not given to drunkenness. He is not violent, but gentle, not quarrelsome, but a servant. He is blameless and upright. A man who fears God and shuns evil. There is no one on earth like him. Again, a pretty big portrait of what a man ought to be. A Proverbs 32 man, if you will. Again, our culture doesn't seem to grasp an understanding of this. It seems that the media and the world today, we get either men who are incompetent, lazy, hapless, clueless, ignorant, incapable of being good husbands or fathers, or we get men who are dominant, alpha male, power hungry, always seeking the conquest of another woman. These are the pictures and the images that we get in the media today and our pop culture of what it means to be desirable or attractive or handsome. The Proverbs 32 man may not make it on the cover of GQ, may not have washboard abs, a deep baritone voice, rugged good looks, just like beautiful hair and a flawless complexion and a toned body aren't mentioned anywhere in Proverbs 31. Instead, the Proverbs 31 woman and the Proverbs 32 man are focused on virtue, character, and here it is, the fear of the Lord. Verse 30, Proverbs 31:30 says, "Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." And the same is true of a man. Those who understand their place and their position before God, who understand that He sees all and I do not, and live in that place of reverence, are the ones in whom the wisdom of God can begin to develop these desirable traits that we have looked at today, and should be the thing that defines our own understanding of what is beautiful and desirable and attractive in another person. Beauty may be in the eye of the beholder, but we desperately need God to change our eyes. If you realize this morning that the ideals you've had in your mind maybe are a bit off, let me say this. The only way to have godly wisdom and experience a change of heart, a change in the desires, and what we find attractive in our affections is by cultivating a relationship with Jesus Christ. He is wisdom for us, and through that relationship, He begins to change what is deep within us that drives our actions, our speech, our choices. This is a little bit of a different kind of message this morning, I'll admit. But I believe that we are more impacted sometimes by these examples in the world than we truly realize. And as Christians, we have the opportunity to be culture shapers everywhere that we go. We have a responsibility to use the wisdom that God gives us through Jesus Christ to help change these ideas that exist in the world about what is beautiful and attractive. It's not just for our own choice of a spouse or the person that we date, but because we are culture shapers wherever we go. We have a responsibility to take proper ideas and ideals into our workplaces, into our conversations, into the relationships around us, and to live out of the ideas that we see here, the Proverbs 31 woman and the Proverbs 32 man. I'd like you to take out your next steps cards in your bulletin or in the seat back in front of you, and worship team, you can go ahead and join me on the stage. I want to just encourage you to consider ways that your eyes may need to be changed. Single men, if that's you, don't be a simple person. We've talked about the simple, the fool, and the wise. These three characters or kinds of people we see throughout the book of Proverbs. Don't be a simple person who is controlled by the appetite of your eyes and forgets what makes a woman truly beautiful. Single ladies, all the single ladies, had to get that in there. I knew I wouldn't get through without saying that. The same is true for you. How do you need to have God change your eyes? What are the ideals and the values that you are pursuing that are going to lead to dissatisfaction, that will not fulfill the way the Proverbs 32 man would? If you're married, don't allow the foolishness of the world to try to convince you that your husband or wife does not measure up. These things seep into us. It's everywhere. Be on guard against that, lest you become dissatisfied and begin to find yourself looking for another ideal that will not satisfy. To all the ladies in the room especially, what expectations of the world have been imposed on you, or are you taking upon yourself, always making you feel not good enough, not pretty enough, always lacking, never measuring up? Reject that. Reject that. And seek the values, seek wisdom of the Proverbs 31 woman. To all of us in the room, who are the young men and women, children, grandchildren that we have an impact on. We have an opportunity to shape their understanding and their ideals and set them up to be able to find a godly, a truly wise and godly man or woman. What shows are we watching? What movies are we seeing? What magazines are we buying? What portrait are we painting for them of what beauty and attractiveness really is? Think about that. We are culture shapers, and we have a better wisdom than the world has to offer, one that is far more satisfying than what culture is giving us today. Let's pursue that, and let God change our eyes. Only Christ, only through a relationship with Jesus Christ can we be changed from the inside out.
We just want to thank you for watching the sermon online. If God is working in your heart, we would love to hear about it. You can go online, www.encountertrinity.com/nextstepscard. You can fill out information there. Let us know what God is doing in your heart. If you need help with anything, we would love to help. Counseling, we would love to do anything that we can to help you go to that next level spiritually. When you fill this out, it goes to one of our pastors. It is private, and we will take care of that information to the best of our ability. We love you, we care about you, and we want to see God do great things in your life. Have a great day.